Did you see the press release I put up in the
I did.
BoneChat?
We can start there.
Congratulations. That's awesome, Mark. I love that collaboration.
You like that?
Yeah, I really do.
Thanks.
Mark's pushing the limits on AI better than most people. Why don't you kick us off?
Okay.
So, Venops and Wishpond, what is it?
Well, I started Venops just as a background, as a basically a channel. Knowing nothing about compliance, I launched a compliance company, and um, the whole purpose of it was to establish relationships with medical practices. And I really thought by now I'd have 10,000, and instead I only have 1,000. But still, that's a lot. A lot of medical practices that you have a relationship with. And the original strategy was to create a channel and then kind of like the Mississippi River, float other things downstream, you know? And so this Provencis is the first one, the first product that I felt had enough innate energy to kind of lead that channel and break through to those practices. So there is I have a relationship with a Canadian company called Wishpond, and we have struck a collaborative agreement for Venops to market their AI package to the healthcare industry in large. So that could be either your medical practice as a AI virtual assistant, it could be your home healthcare dealer taking calls from clients and customers to deliver oxygen. It could be a medical device company, with a link on your homepage to say, this is kind of what we do. This is why we do it. Here's our KOLs, whatever you want to say. Anything basically a non-clinical human person could probably do, the AI can do to a certain extent. And it can also integrate with your CRM or your EMR or practice management system and make appointments and that sort of thing. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, we're all sort of in the very forefront of this. At the academy, I did a pretty thorough sort of recon of the hall, and I found several startups, and nobody knew what they're doing. It was great. It was so entrepreneurial. Just a bunch of enthusiastic wishers, and everybody from a couple of doctors that started one up to probably the most sophisticated effort was this company from San Francisco called Across Medical. They, of course, are in the right place as far as raising money. They have a couple of Sequoia fund backers, and a couple of really sharp people. They have like a two-man sales team, and they picked up like Ortho Indy and a few other Chesapeake, a few accounts, not that many. And I don't think any of the companies that I met at the academy, since most of them are really kind of non-healthcare startup types, really understand how hard it is to move the needle in this healthcare world, to build that critical mass. Anyway, so I called it Provencis, which is kind of sort of a made up leftover from my parochial school Latin classes, pro being through and vencis being come or advance. And we'll see where it goes.
So this is outbound. This is outbound AI
Inbound.
sales.
It can be outbound or inbound.
Okay. Wow. And it's
So
phone numbers, it's voice, it's people calling, it's bots calling people.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could do like a 3-minute demo right now of one in which I call a made up imaginary orthopedic practice and make an appointment because I twisted my ankle. You want me to do that?
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just a
Pretty-
second. I'll let you listen to it. Her name is Sarah. We'll see how she does.
Hello, this is Sarah with Summit Orthopedics. How can I help you today?
Oh, hey Sarah, this is Mark Maloney. I was playing this new game called pickleball, and I twisted my ankle. It really hurts, and I think I might need to see a doctor.
Sorry to hear that. I'd be happy to help you schedule an appointment with one of our orthopedic specialists. Can I get your phone number so I can follow up with some available times and dates?
Sure, 678-895-1159.
I've got your phone number, Mark. How's your ankle feeling right now?
Oh,
Swollen, throbbing, or just aching?
it hurts a lot. It's a little bit swollen. I can't get my shoe on. I probably need to see somebody as soon as possible.
I'd like to get you in to see one of our doctors as soon as possible. Let me check our schedule real quick. Would you prefer to be seen today or tomorrow?
Today.
I've got a few openings left for today. Can I get your date of birth, please?
It would be December 18th, 1985.
I think I can squeeze you in today, Mark. Let me just check with our doctor's schedules. We have a 4:30 p.m. opening with Dr. Smith. Would that work for you?
I'll be there. Thanks.
We'll get you all fixed up, Mark. Go ahead and put you down for 4:30 p.m. with Dr. Smith today. We'll have all your information ready when you arrive.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Sarah. I made up a bunch of others, but I won't bore you. They can be inbound or outbound. In other words, I got a couple there that can be programmed for outbound. I just recently, in my orthopedic business, I picked up Treese Medical for Chattanooga and Eastern Tennessee, and I made an AI to text a doctor to say, hey, Dr. Smith suggested that you listen to this because we're, bringing Treese to your area. If you get a minute, hit this number. And then that particular doctor would text that number and it would say that we're bringing Treese in. We'll do, we're doing dry labs, wet labs, whatever. I mean, kind of whatever your imagination. I mean, listen, we're just at the beginning of this. Nobody really knows where it's going to go exactly, but it's kind of fun.
So it's like filling the top of the funnel, and
Yeah.
you get warm leads with that. And you can, the thing people don't realize is you can, it works 24 hours a day, and the bot can talk to 10 or 100 people at the same time too.
Yeah. So my wife is going through some pulmonary rehab on a real world example. And so if you're going through pulmonary rehab, one of the things they're doing these days, even if you don't normally use oxygen, they're beginning to use oxygen kind of like a football player uses it on the sidelines. They sort of pump you up before your exercise or before your rehab session. And so they delivered this little oxygen thing for her to use when she goes to rehab. And I called yesterday to order a couple. And I'm talking to this home healthcare dealer, and suddenly they said, listen, if you don't want to wait, talk to our AI virtual. And I did. It was a no-brainer. I was in and out, happened real fast. So that's kind of where it is already. And it kind of reminds me of, I get the same feeling with this that I got when we started e-trauma and we started bringing digital imaging into orthopedics. Everybody was using film. Everybody thought, well, this will take forever. It took 5 years, and Kodak Medical was out of business. Their whole film division, which had been around for decades, had shut down. That's how fast it moved. EMR the same way. And I get the feeling that AI is going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway.
Mark, that was amazing. The only thing that's not believable is that you're getting an ortho appointment the same day.
No, the most unbelievable thing is that I was born in 1985.
that I would have believed compared to getting an ortho to you the same day.
Yeah, and Dr. Smith just got out of his residency last week too. That's the other problem.
Yeah, Dr. Smith, he's an AI too.
Yeah. Well, it's like every company's going to have these things, these bots that, it's fascinating. Yeah, that is really interesting. And so
we have so many smart people on this channel, which is such a great thing. How would you use this? Would you focus on medical practices, which we know are slow adopting and risk averse? Or would you market this more to medical industry and device, or just a mix of two and see where it goes? What does everybody think?
You know what comes to my mind straight away is training for Salesforce. So, because we have you start building a network of reps around the country and around the countries, and they are calling your product managers every day for questions and questions and questions. So creating a layer between the product manager and the Salesforce could actually be a pretty interesting, quick application in the inside of the industry.
That's a good idea.
There's actually a surgeon from WashU that developed this. He's reached out to my team for sales training. You know, I obviously I would target the distributors. It kind of reminds me of when pain management was doing those compounding creams, you know, and everybody, the distributors are the ones that really put that in place. It's the ones with the relationships. I don't know. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, a lot of those distributors that did the compounding are in jail.
Yeah, exactly. But it adopted so quickly. I'm so glad I never got involved in that. But man, it evolved quickly, and those people, they just had mailbox money forever until they didn't.
So I was the same way. I got people were banging on me for 3 or 4 years to get in this. It's great. They're awesome. And, they're buying yachts and going on vacations. And finally, literally 6 months before the balloon burst, I actually signed up a couple of clients. And before I knew it, the money that was coming in was like, oh, this is bad. This is dangerous. This is not right.
Yeah.
I got out fast. And a couple of people that invited me in actually went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah. So I like the idea of the product manager a lot, because if you're a distributor rep and you have like 10 products, you're like an inch deep and a mile wide. You don't know that much. And before you go in and maybe make a sales call, and if you made a phone call to Sarah or Alvin or somebody, you could ask them, hey, what are the top 3 things? This guy, this doctor does this, so forth and so on. How should I hit him? And they could tell you. That's a good idea.
Interesting.
Totally got distracted, Mark, when you asked your question, but I think you want to know how to market it. And is that what your question was?
Yeah, just who would you target? Would it be the professional side or the industry side? And how would you market it?
Yeah, I think you have a really strong play here with CFOs and HR, right? Because they're the ones that are hiring, you're replacing staffing. This is simple stupid for a CFO of any organization, right? You take what is your monthly cost of this AI robot, and most AI programs, I'm assuming yours too, can be modified to talk to anybody's different business here, right? So like it could work for a clinic, but it could also work for inventory issues, or so there is a little bit of programming. But even at that cost, you're talking a fraction of the cost of a real human being who's probably going to make mistakes. And when you listen, I mean, I think you have something really cool with what you just showed us demonstration wise to prove to a CFO or HR that this sounds real, it's interactive, it's not robotic, it's not like the old style where you get an answer and you're talking to a robot. That was a pretty cool investment, I feel like. So I think you go into those two streams, and it's kind of simple stupid at that point, right? Because they can free up their team for a fraction of the cost. I think to me, it seems like an easy sell across all platforms. It depends how much scope you have there for programming.
I agree with that, Colleen, simply because I know several practices that, if you hit one to talk with a rep to schedule an appointment, you could just literally funnel all of that out, because I know several practices that are not calling their patients back. They're simply putting them to voicemail. And literally there were voicemails 3 months prior that never got addressed. So if you could even just like segment that one aspect of the market and capture it, it would save so much just on scheduling appointments and time and investment from the office staff perspective.
There's your hook too. How many clients have you lost in your voicemail system?
Yeah, I met a guy who has a BPO service for medical practices. Like he's more like family medicine, but he has increased practice revenue by like 15% just by making sure patients get callbacks and then they get calls for follow-up visits.
Those are great points. Actually, that's a great emailer. That's a good opener. How many patients have you lost?
What would you charge, Mark? Is it just like $100
Yeah,
a month or
I can-
something? Or
60 for six. Okay, so you just heard maybe like what, 3 minutes, 4 minutes? So I could sell you 16 hours for $500.
okay, so that's
So that's a lot of phone
a
calls,
lot of engagements. Yeah.
a lot of engagements.
Or you can do it per phone call in.
I could, yeah. But the way that the software is written right now is by that time. It's kind of already programmed.
Which is cool. So if they only use 3 minutes, they only pay for 3 minutes. If they
Yeah.
use 90 minutes,
Well,
they
yeah.
pay for 90.
Well, for $500, they get 16 hours.
Yep.
So, and that's a monthly forecastable number. It's a known number for the CFO. I like that predictable number.
If you look at the cost of just having somebody man that phone, even if it's like a virtual type of assistant, $500 is nothing.
Yeah. Agreed. And there's not a language barrier. That would be another thing is press a certain number if you need non-English, outside of English speaking. And then you'd have an automatic translator. That would be a big value add, particularly in certain markets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Sarah can speak other languages, you know, so it's kind of cool there too.
I don't know if you guys, there was some big political thing in India, and the guy that won the election used an AI bot, and he was talking to like 10,000 people at the same time.
He
He
and his opponent both used it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing it scales, it scales so far. You can have multiple conversations at the same time that a normal person can't.
Well, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, keep us posted.
I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah. So no topics, but Colleen Ferrer talked about she thinks the IPO market may be opening up soon. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I don't know, Colleen, where did Colleen Gray go? Because I think Colleen Ferrari is not the expert. I just happen to know a lot of investors. But the conversation has come up that, just in the last week, two different investors have told me the same thing. And they say you're going to start seeing this IPO open up because right now, when you look at when the interest rates were right and when they started to lower, everybody doubled down. They started spending cash. They started writing checks. And now we're at that 5 to 6 year mark. And money's expensive. So they either need to find somebody to buy their company, right? Which is money's expensive and there's a lot less risk, or they need to go to IPO. So it's more of a conversation now than it's been in a long time, it sounds like.
I think there's only one company that's filed an S1, but they'll be testing the market, but I haven't seen a lot of action yet.
I think the other thing that's happening is we're seeing an increase in M&A activity. Small, but it's got to start somewhere. So I think that's another positive trend that will help with getting investors to start writing checks again.
Yeah, agree. I've seen that as well, actually. Just got off the phone with somebody.
Yeah, I know a VC that had 200 million committed and for an AI fund, and they only brought in 76 of it because people were holding on to their money. They're just holding on to it right now.
Wow.
So it's hurting everything. When people hold on to money, it hurts everything. Like industry, everything stops. And so it forces companies, like Colleen said, to go to IPO.
Yeah, I think Osseo is just killing it. They're doubling sales every year. I don't know. They're probably going from 30 million to 50 million this year. And they may be getting, just my speculation, but they may be getting too expensive for an acquisition. And I think they may take a run at an IPO later this year. Yeah, it's fascinating. And interest rates is a big factor, right, Colleen? It's if interest rates drop, a little bit, then there's more liquidity in the market. But if
Yeah, I mean, if interest rates drop, then the risk-free return on capital isn't necessarily as attractive to investors, and they start to think about, taking a little bit more risk with money.
what do VC funds do if they have like when Alyssa said 200 million in a new fund? What do they do with that money? They just stick it in a money market account, or I mean, what interest do they get? I have no idea.
I think the challenge with the VC is that they're not filling their funds.
I'm sorry.
So I think some challenge with the VC is that they're not actually filling their funds. I've been chatting to a couple of people who said they can't actually get their funds filled. So I think there's plenty of stuff to invest in, but you can't. They're not necessarily getting everything they want into the funds to be able to invest. So I think it's a mix of things.
Yeah, they're super, super selective right now. Everyone I've talked to, really, really selective. So there's if you follow Berkshire Hathaway, they have more money in cash than they ever had percentage wise in the history of the company. I was just listening to this thing on Squawk Box too. When you look at interest rates, right, and how the Fed operates interest rates, kind of an interesting place, because when inflation goes up, you raise interest rates. When recession looms, you lower interest rates. And we're right in the middle of inflation going up, recession woes. So the Fed is kind of stuck in this place like, what do we do? We're right in the middle. And I think everybody, I don't know if I shared this last time we talked, but did I share this about JP Morgan and Chase? I work with advisors from JP Morgan. And they're really interesting. Every week they have the economists come in and they do this meeting with all of the economists. And they say, hey, this is how the business is going to be. This is what we're predicting, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's been now like 6 weeks in a row that they've pretty much had this meeting and said, we have no idea. So that's kind of a terrifying message, but
Surprising but terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah, uncertainty is never good for markets in general, and giving people the comfort to spend money. And we're we've got a little bit of everything going on. We've got uncertainty. We've got a really large number of companies competing for scarce capital. That became obvious to me attending the LSI MedTech event. It's stunning to me how many companies are trying to raise early stage capital right now.
Supply and demand problem. Kyle, you got a comment?
Well, I was hoping Ben would weigh in on this since he's in like the thick of all of this with NanoCon. Ben, do you have any sentiment here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that we have, I think we've done a good job raising capital, but it's really been a mix of new investors and old investors re-upping their support. And I actually would say that maybe, a little bit more than half of the capital we've raised over the last 18 months has been through existing investors that are really excited about the progress we've made and wanting to re-up their investment. So I think that, the bigger VCs, we're hoping to maybe raise a 20 million Series A towards the end of this year. The bigger VCs that I've known for years, the household names in the space, are all still out there, all still saying they're interested. But they're telling me the same thing that they have told me since I founded the company, which is they have to see human clinical data. So, that milestone for a PMA device is huge. I think that, companies are really kind of struggling to bridge this in-between gap of like the company being really early and then hitting that big value inflection point where bigger players will come in. I mean, I know some fund managers of, you know, some of the bigger $150 million funds who did fill out their rounds, but I think again, as other people have said, they're being really selective and kind of continuing to move the needle a little bit further, at least for, you know, implants and hardware and that kind of stuff. I don't know if I can really speak to, you know, AI and software, but at least on, you know, my side of the industry, that's kind of how it's looking. And so it's funny too, because I've actually started to get turned down by investors because we're at the tail end of closing out this bridge round. I've gotten turned down by investors who for years told me I was too early, but this might be the good time for them to step in. And they're saying, "Oh, now you're actually too late for us. We wanted to do earlier stage stuff." So it's my head feels like it's on a swivel all the time, but I don't know. You know, I think if you could get the company to a certain point, those kind of like marquee big check writers are still out there writing checks. It's getting harder and harder to cross the valley of death, to kind of use that tired term.
Interesting. So, yeah, Mark.
So I've got a question on actually a kind of a separate subject, and I don't want to cut off the talk, you know, on early investment right now. So I'll wait a minute.
Okay. Well, this sort of dovetails. Yeah, Colleen Gray and I had a discussion. I'd love to get everybody's feedback on this. We're actually thinking about using BoneChat as a way for startups to practice their pitching, and because you don't get any feedback, you know, when like everything that was just said in 5 minutes. There's way too many companies vying for too little money, and they don't really hone their. Let me show you what I want to hear people saying this is a great idea or terrible, or, you know, go jump in a lake, something. Where is it? Hang on.
While you're looking, I love that idea.
Okay.
Same.
One of the biggest complaints I've ever had in training or leading a sales force is a typical sales rep or actually salesperson spends hours, days, weeks getting an appointment, and they spend seconds rehearsing.
Yeah, it's a good point. So here, this is I just wrote this up today. Pitch smarter, pitch faster. What's the problem? Basically, there's no feedback for startups. What's the solution? Oh, go ahead.
I would add, Keiretsu has a really good pitch training course to where you just spend like an hour and they teach you how to pitch to Keiretsu. I would add an option to teach companies what is valuable to investors, and here's how to pitch on top of that. Because I think there's a lot. So we're doing this at the NAS Innovation Summit. I'm teaching the surgeons how to pitch and what their pitch deck should look like and what's important to investors. And then I think Mark Viscogliosi is going to help me and provide context while I'm teaching.
Cool. Yeah, there's interesting. All right. Well, anyway, so you guys think that's a decent idea? So, okay. So maybe once a month we'll have a pitch day, and somebody will come in and pitch, and we'll tell them that's a great idea. That's a terrible idea. Your messaging's wrong. You're not telling the investors how to get their money back or whatever it is. We'll give them real feedback. Go ahead, Mauricio.
Yeah, another thing is we can add to that, like not only the company pitch, but also like if you have a product that you're going to market, what would your sales pitch be, or how would you train your sales force? I think there's a ton of very valuable experience in this group on how to pitch a product to clinicians and all of that.
Yeah, agree.
What do you think?
I
There's some time limits on it. Sorry.
Yeah, it'll be the Zoom calls are an hour, and I think the pitch would be a normal pitch, like 8 minutes or something, and then it would be Q&A. Good question. Eminal?
I'd suggest maybe putting a bit of structure around it. You know, most kind of pitch decks have got particular structure to them. So giving feedback under particular headings. So much easier is on the receiving end to pass feedback and do something with it if it's specific, as opposed to everyone just kind of piling in and saying, well, yeah, I didn't like this bit, I didn't like that bit. So your market sizing, go-to-market strategy. If we just think about the different categories to give feedback on, I think it's a little more specific and they'll get a little more value from it.
Yeah, Tiger, do you have some sort of sheet to work from? Tick, 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 make sure they hit a list.
No. So the way it works is they have joined BoneChat, they would upload their deck, and then they would pick one of the pitch days. And so we could all look at their deck ahead of time if you're so inclined. And then it's just cold. They just come in and pitch.
Right, but I think you were saying, the other gentleman was saying it's a good idea to kind of make sure they get feedback on different areas, right?
Yeah, I like Eminol's idea. Yeah, so there'd be like maybe 10 check boxes. Is the market size explained well? Is the patent protection there? Does the management team look right? Whatever.
So have you ever heard, a very good friend of mine told me this story, and he's done.
You're freezing, Colleen. You froze.
Yeah, so Tiger, I think Eminol's point is really valid, where if we are going to collectively say that this is something that we want to offer as an opportunity to engage and give feedback, there's going to be a couple of categories, and it'd be nice to know that their general structure is not something we need to be critical about, like who's involved, what's the market size, time to market projections. That there should be boilerplate standards, and most companies are probably going to be able to put that together. There's lots of publicly available information. But the other thing that we probably would do is say that we're going to critique, like call it the believability of what they're doing. We would critique their delivery method. We would critique something like that would be worth discussing or sharing beforehand, so we're not just haphazard vomiting all over somebody after their pitch deck, whether it's 10 of us or 20 of us, because one of the things, I think there's some value here, but we've all been involved in pitches to some degree. Some of that information is welcome and some of that information is not very welcome, and it would be worthwhile for us to be mindful of where we can do something that is not just a regurgitation of anything that they would hear in running through it with their family members or previous colleagues or whatever. So it's a cool idea. I love it.
I like it. I like adding some structure and coaching. And I like the idea of sales, teaching them how to pitch their sales force. I like that a lot. Well, thanks.
I think also taking it one step further and using AI to analyze the pitch and then posting on BoneChat the individual company and why the BoneChat crew advocates for a certain company. If we all if 70% of us gave a thumbs up, you could have like a tomato meter reading. And I would only do this obviously for the ones that are viable and good. But if they met, like 70% of us gave a thumbs up, and here's why. It could be utilized. It could be valuable to investors because it's a central community specific to orthopedics and spine.
I like that a lot.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's what's missing.
The broken femurs instead of the rotten tomatoes.
Yeah, there's all sorts of pitches out there, and you see it advertised a ton that they're pitching at this thing, but nobody actually gets to hear what they pitch or the responses unless they watch the video. And so it keeps it to where people are learning about these companies and why industry likes them.
You could give your AI the structure, the analytical structure, and then actually record the pitch live, transcribe it live, and have the analysis in about 10 seconds. That's how fast it could be done. I mean, this could all be done almost virtually real time.
That's exactly what I did for my company, because we're closing the note and there's just a little bit of money, but we have 20 to 40 investors, and it's basically first come, first serve. So I wanted to provide a market analytics that really doesn't, it's not centered around Illuminate. It's just saying, you know, here's where Illuminate fits in to give some market awareness.
Cool.
I love that. Wow. Eric.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if this was the right time or not. We sort of moved away from it, but I wanted to ask Ben a couple questions about the class 3 funding conundrum. So
Please.
Ben's right on us. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, any-
so that's what we're facing right now. I have a IDE that's going in, you know, early next week. And that's great. It could get approved, but there's nothing we can do with it because we don't have the money to start a study. So we haven't been able to raise money for it yet because everyone's saying, "Hey, yeah, it's a great product. You know, come back when you have some clinical data." And
Right.
so it's that chicken and egg kind of thing going on. So we're hoping that once we get our IDE approved, that may help loosen some money up for us, or maybe if we can get enough money that we get, you know, 50 patients in or something like that, maybe that'll help. I just wanted to hear what you thought might be some milestones that might help loosen up some money for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, we did a good job in a couple areas. One is we just have a tremendous amount of preclinical data and like very convincing preclinical data. So I think that, you know, that always helped us get over the line, at least with investors that had the capacity or had the advisors in their network to look at that data and understand it. So I think that was helpful. I also think you know, we did a really, really good job of just building a really good network of clinicians and physician advisors, and also converting some of them into investors, and then having some of those individuals who are willing to, you know, field diligence calls with investors and really pound the table and, you know, say, as a surgeon, I absolutely want and need this. It's a no-brainer for me. So I think that's also something that really, really helped. And then, you know, I think the other is having really active anchor investors who are also willing to sort of get on these diligence calls and again, really pound the table and, you know, talk very intelligently and very assertively about why they invested in Nanocon. So really also relying on, you know, my investor base to also kind of help support and move the needle. And I got that advice early on from a friend of mine who's been successful in the pharma space, who said, you know, we can get on these diligence calls and give these pitch meetings and, you know, talk about our company all day long, but it's when the money talks to the other money that real decisions seem to get made. So again, not knowing anything about the makeup of your cap table, I think that's always really helped us a lot.
So anything I mentioned, you know, like I said, getting our IDE approved and then maybe getting some patients enrolled. Is our thinking correct that might help, or does that not really do it?
Actually having some patients enrolled, you mean?
Yes.
I mean,
Money.
I guess it depends. I mean, if one of the bits of feedback you're getting from investors is that they're worried that enrollment will be slow, I think that might help. And it also demonstrates that, you know, you're able to execute quickly. So I don't think it hurts. I mean, we've you know, got a surgeon who was really aggressive with enrollment even before we got the regulatory clearance to start the trial. So I think that probably did help a little bit. You know, I think the other thing too, and you know, maybe you actually have a great answer for this, but just really understanding the exit comps, and also really understanding the size of the target market. Because I think, and again, this is another bit of free advice that I'll pass on that I got from, you know, an investor and a mentor early on, was that if you're going to go down the PMA road, your target market better be $1 billion or more. So I think also just kind of having strong, having a strong handle on what our market looks like and being able to talk about it convincingly, I think has also helped, because it gives investors a little bit more confidence that, yeah, they're going to have to wait, but, this could be a much better return than, a quicker opportunity.
Great. I also think, Tiger, what you're talking about could help us because, I'm not the one doing the pitching. I'm not involved with that, but I did look at our pitch deck the other day, and I was embarrassed to read it to myself.
Yeah, most pitch decks are very technical and they don't speak to the investor's needs, but that's normal.
So,
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah,
Eric, I just asked 2 different AI engines your problem. I said, I have a class 3 medical device with limited funds. I'm having trouble raising funds before the clinical trial. Would it be helpful for me to create a simulated medical trial, and how accurate would it be to do a virtual one? And I got an amazing amount of feedback, up to and including a pitch deck, which I'll share with you.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be great. And it just, obviously I want the company to stick around as long as I'm with it so I can continue to get paid. And it's really cool technology. But we all know that doesn't really always make it happen.
I mean, I think of with the amount of data, 30% of all of the data in the entire world is healthcare. I don't know if you know that or not. It's not financial or money or porn, it's healthcare. So that's an incredible amount of data. But so your virtual clinical trial has a pretty good chance of actually being pretty realistic. And I mean, if you're trying to convince people, I'm saying that's all.
Yeah.
So I have another question, Tiger, when the time is right for the group.
Go for it.
Okay. So one of my partners is an orthopedic surgeon in Phoenix, and I've been helping him with his EMR accelerator, which is now AI enabled. Okay. And there's 2 parts to it. The company is called Tempeda, and the designer doctor has basically used it to accelerate his efficiency up like 35% in his clinic. So all it does is it shortens the amount of documentation time when using your EMR, which is a giant burden for most doctors. Okay. And so it's 2 parts to it. One is you, the doctor, have to create sort of these smart templates, which are accelerated in their usage by AI. That's kind of part A. But part B, which is another secret sauce, is once you've created the SOAP note or the actual orders and notes, there's another component called autopilot, which takes that information and puts it in the 10, 15 different places that you have to put it into when using an EMR. Because an EMR is burdensome in 2 ways. It's burdensome in creating the data to put into the EMR, instead of just dictating and somebody else doing all the work and putting in the chart. Now you actually have to click and paste and put it in different places in your EMR. And I'm talking Cerner, Epic, Athena, all of the big ones, ModMed, they are all a pain to do this with. So we have found it to be very difficult to get doctors to take the time to create their templates. And so, but the autopilot, which is automated and easy, I'm thinking that maybe that's the sale. Because it can be used on any EMR. It's EMR agnostic. And I was just curious what y'all thought.
Yeah, I don't know enough about EMR systems, but I know they're islands, they don't talk to each other,
Well, ours can talk to any of them because it's browser based. There's no connectivity. There's no no HL7 or Fire connection or anything else. I mean, that's all. Anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of browser based, is it firewalled? I mean, what is?
There's no firewall. There's no barrier.
So how do you protect patient data? That'll be the first question people ask.
Yeah, I think you have some HIPAA that's going to be the biggest obstacle to overcome with providers. And it may not be an obstacle, but I think, I think Tiger and I just jumped to the same conclusion.
Yeah, it's not an obstacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like it. That's cool. Thanks.
Interesting. Wow. What else?
It's funny, Mark, I'm working with a big pharma company right now, and it's kind of interesting. We're talking about AI, and there's no, like, you think about some of these note takers and all of this stuff, right? And they cannot get out of their way with the privacy issue. Like, no matter how, I have this, I probably should make an introduction to you, Mark. These guys are working on this AI, isolated firewalled AI specifically for pharma, medical device, things like that. I should probably make a connection so you can reach out to them and talk, but doesn't matter how much, how I tell them this is an internal tool, you're the only one using it, there's no access. It is like, and it's like a concrete wall and a rubber hammer. Like, I can't get through it.
Really?
Well, and it's because years, right? This is privacy IP, it's there, it's solid. So
There's gatekeepers, there's quality nurse gatekeepers that, protect everything. You got to get
I
past.
don't know. If you're afraid to attack, you'll never win.
Oh, 1,000%, 100%. They've got to integrate this stuff. They're going to be behind if they don't. But
The problem is I've actually worked in implementing software systems into hospitals. There's so many people that never even talk to each other that have a yes or no. And so to get all of those people, you're talking like 60 different people in a room all together at the same time to actually get a decision made. And nobody's willing to make a decision. I mean, it's a 2-3 year process, and it's expensive. So unless you're providing, the company that I was with, they charged like $30,000 to implement it within the system, and that just knocked it out right in and of itself because they're not willing to pay for it to be implemented. If you keep it under 25,000, typically like a department head can sign off on it. But the problem is there's multiple department heads that will be using it. So who's willing to sign off on it and attribute it to their budget?
Yeah. Within every, that's really smart, Alyssa. Within every deal, there's a myriad number of no people, but there's only one yes person. Once you find that,
that's the problem. Yeah, that's the ultimate problem here, is because there's multiple yes people in software deals, and finding out who those people aren't necessarily the person you think they are on paper or on their title.
Golly.
Sounds like I like the rubber hammer and the cement wall. That's
I've been beating that rubber hammer. Maybe I need to find that one person, Mark, and hit him with the rubber hammer, or her with the rubber hammer.
I mean,
the regenerative medicine practices, those are big ones. ENT private practices are really, because they can say yes or no quickly. I mean, I wouldn't go with hospital institutions until you have a really complex understanding of the software, how it works, and you have a lot of data.
What if you target surgery centers? The decision making is faster, probably. They have less systems. The systems are younger.
You talking to Colleen?
No.
Talking to you, Mark.
Oh.
Anything privately owned where it's just a handful of people that can say no.
And that surgery center, I think, is going to be more responsive than anyone, because it's owned by a smaller group of people, and they're more focused on that bottom line. I mean, they're more reactive and responsive to that bottom line, I think, than a hospital, right? So if you can show the value and what they're saving in time, how they could do more surgeries less money, less payroll. It's a winning solution.
Yeah, if I was gonna do software, I would do 100% like private practices, ASCs. I would go, and I wouldn't even think about the larger institutional people. I think that the little ones are being burdened with more and more compliance and more regulations and more challenges to billing and more everything. And they don't have the resources to deal with it. And the tools that are out there are made for the big guys who, have a ton of infrastructure to support it.
I think we all agree.
I don't know how you have the patience to talk to pharma people.
Yeah, it would be amazing to, especially for these small private practices, to be able to schedule. Yeah, to be able to schedule an appointment after hours is a big deal. It's you have a completely untapped market after hours scheduling. That would be massive for small companies. For any.
That would be a great name for a great product.
What, after hours?
After hours scheduling.
After hours scheduling. I like it. And it's a bot that they'll never know.
I know. Sarah never sleeps. So like I said, Colleen, I don't know how you have the patience to talk to pharma people, because all my experience ever with pharma people is pharmaceutical companies seem to make so much money that nobody cares that they get anything actually done.
Yeah, where I found a little niche is the startup pharma space. So now it's kind of interesting. The phone is ringing because we have, we streamline businesses, right? We make you more profitable. We leadership, communication, all of that piece. So all these companies that have all these big dollars going to them, the Ps are investing big in them. All of a sudden the Ps saying, well, I don't have another $5 billion to add to your, or whatever. And they're saying, okay, how are we going to make it work with what we have? And that's what makes my phone ring. So I'm not going in there for AI, but it's absolutely on the table. But they're the hardest people to kind of bring into this century with AI for sure. But yeah, most of it is organizational design that we're doing with them, because now I think they're in trouble, right? The pipeline is drying up because it's harder for them to get money in these drugs. But yeah, they're a little frustrating. You have a lot of people who have never trained to be a leader, never been trained to be a leader in a leadership role. And so they just make decisions, communicate improperly, and it's a challenge, but fun too, in a weird kind of way. So
when I first got out of the Army, and when I was resigning from the Army, part of the reason I was resigning was that I really hated staff people. I liked people. I like to be on the line. I like to be outside. I like the action. I like that part of the Army. I was definitely more of a Patton kind of guy than an Eisenhower kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so when I interviewed with pharmaceutical companies when I first got out, and I flew up to Chicago and up to Philadelphia, everybody I met were like staff people. I hated them. I said, I cannot work with these people. And then I got an interview. I flew to Kalamazoo to talk to Stryker, and they were so bare bones and just so practical. I'm going, oh, these are my people.
Yeah.
These are my people.
Never look back.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys, I have to jump. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All you guys.
So a little bit of housekeeping thing. Thanks, Colleen. So everybody's on Slack. Some people use it more than others, but we're going to port everybody over to another system called Glue. And it should be GLUE. It should be seamless. It looks exactly like Slack. All the conversations is coming over, but you will have to download the Glue app onto your desktop or cell phone, however you use it. So anyway, look for that. Glue's better, faster, has AI stuff. You can just start a conversation on Glue and it'll automatically give it a title and a thread. It's better. Anything else? Closing. We didn't talk about LSI much. A few people were out there. The list is the only one left, I think. How was it?
I didn't go. I was at
Oh, you didn't
Academy.
go.
I was in 4 weeks. I was in DC, New York 3 times, London, and San Diego. I was like, and everybody's searching for money at LSI. I've just never heard the value ever translate across the board, across the finish line.
Yeah.
But I got to see Mark there. I'm sorry I missed you, Kyle.
No worries. San Diego was pretty wild for myself as well, so it was really neat to catch up with folks. I just wish I had seen the sun a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Yeah,
place.
it was great to meet you, Alyssa and Kyle. And I didn't see everybody. Who is it? Thomas Hill? What's his?
Thomas Kender?
Yeah, Kinder. I saw him.
Yep. Subchondral Solutions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. All right. Thanks, Tiger.
Thanks, guys. Been great.
Everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.